Today I'm going to talk about buying my first property. It started about the same time that I started to get divorced. And it was a 3-family house. And when I got separated, I didn't really have anywhere to live because my family was in New York, but I needed to stay in the area here in Connecticut because this is where my kids and my job were. So I lived in my car from I think July until September of 2015 because I really needed this property to be able to live, because if not, I don't know how I would have been able to afford to live. I wouldn't have been able to pay rent. My income was about $2,200 a month. Of that, I had to pay about $1,000 a month in child support, which left me with about $1,200. You know, I wouldn't be able to live anywhere and pay my rent and car insurance and cell phone and just all the regular living expenses that people have to pay. So I really needed to close on this property because the mortgage was going to be a little over $1,200 a month, and the income from the other 2 units were about $1,600 a month. In Connecticut, the landlord has to pay water and sewer, which would have been about $200 a month. So that would have cost me approximately $1,400 a month. So I would have been able to set aside $200 a month for the property. So I really needed this property to be able to just afford to live very basically. So I lived in my car from July to September of that year. And when I closed, it was like one of the most exciting, happy, times in life, because it was actually the first time that I was living alone in my life as an adult. And when I moved in, I had a bed to sleep in rather than in my car. I felt like I would be able to live and survive. I mean, not much left over, but I had a bed to sleep in, and I could afford to pay my bills and to eat each day. So when I first moved in there, I was very, very thankful. And it was a 3-family. But just to give you some idea of what the numbers look like for that, I bought that property we closed on it in September of 2015 for $155,000. I believe we got the seller to pay closing costs. We went $5,000 over asking. We got the seller to pay the closing costs. And so my share, what I had to come to closing with, was like a little under $9,000. I had about $5,000 or $6,000 in my retirement account that I borrowed. And then I think I borrowed another $3,000 or $4,000 from my dad and my sister, which I paid them both back with interest. But I really needed to get that place. So I lived there from 2015 to 2020, essentially rent-free. And I managed and maintained it. I learned how to do basic repairs through YouTube. And I just kind of figured it out as I went. I had the same 2 tenants from when I purchased it until when I moved out and sold it. When I moved out in 2020, it was into another multi-family home. But the unit that I was living in, I rented out for $800 a month. So, and I think at that time I was getting I don't think I'd raised the rent at all, really. I actually lowered it because one of my tenants was having some financial challenges. But at that time, the rents that I was getting from the 3 units was about approximately $2,700 a month. And the mortgage was still, I think taxes or insurance might have gone up a little bit, but they might have been like $1,240 or $1,250 for the mortgage. So when I moved out in 2020, I was, after repairs, maintenance, capital expenditures, all the expenses that come with the mortgage, utilities, all the expenses that come with the property, which I'll get into another video, I'd probably walk away with about $700 or $800 a month from that property. So I had it for another 2 years. And then when I sold it for 258,000. And then there's other miscellaneous expenses and taxes that you have to pay. I had accumulated some debt from some other kind of risky investments. So I basically, because I lived there a few years, I didn't have to pay capital gains tax on the proceeds. But, you know, I got an over a 6-figure check, and it really was solidified how beneficial real estate is and could be for me. And I mean, I just continue to do it to this day. But essentially, I purchased it for $155 in 2015 and sold it for $258 in 2022. You know, a good chunk of the funds I did use to pay off some debts and things like that, but I just took those funds, the rest of the funds, and reinvested it into different ventures and opportunities. But I just wanted to give you some insight into another dealer opportunity. I'll probably follow this up with some more details of the numbers and how to evaluate numbers. But yeah, that was my first property. Thanks again for listening.